how do we tackle the growing cost of the living crisis in New Zealand, particularly for Māori feeling the brutal bite of increasing cost demands? We have with us in studio now Papakura Marae CEO Tony Kake. Tēnā koe, Tony. Also joining us is Ahorangi Professor Tahu Kukutai from the University of Waikato. Te Ahorangi, tēnā koe no mai.
Tēnā koe.
And we'll also have with us throughout the discussion the manutaki of the Auckland City Mission, Helen Robinson. Right, let's get into it. Tony, how bad are things now?
Oh, kia ora. Look, we've seen an increasing demand on kai. We've seen an increasing struggle with the cost of living, cost of housing in Tāmaki Makaurau specifically. So we out at Papakura Marae are witnessing this every day.
What's the impact of that on the services that you provide? Obviously growing demand, right?
Yeah, it is. And look, it just means that we have to try and do more with our whānau just to survive. Our whānau in a survival, many of our whānau, this is not all of them, but a good majority of our whānau in survival mode. I'll give you an example, like 57% of the whānau that come to the marae every day for kai, 57% are Māori. All right, you find another 22% are European, so and another 18% are Pacifica, and so it's widespread across all cultures. But alarmingly, the whānau that we see, a majority are Māori.
Well, so you said 57%, so over half of those seeking support and assistance from the marae are Māori.
Yep. Well, that's just with kai.
Wow.
It's just with kai.
So what are the other demands at the moment?
Oh, housing support. There's just navigating the whole system, navigating the different government departments that are in their lives, pathways to employment, needing the skills to get into employment. So, but the number one issue that's really facing our whānau in Papakura, around in Tāmaki Makaurau, is the cost of housing. And some of our whānau are really struggling. Their outgoings their housing outgoings are up around 50-60%, and that's just not sustainable.
Okay, I will bring in the Ahorangi soon, but we're just going to go to Australia because Helen Robinson, the manutaki of Auckland City Mission, is joining us now from Australia. Helen, tēnā koe and welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Are you seeing the same types of things, Helen? Are you seeing the same types of demands for service and assistance in your mahi? We've just lost it, but we'll come back to her hopefully soon in Australia. Let's come to you, Ahorangi. This is interesting, eh? Ahorangi, these current trends, and given that we've seen the census results, right? So Tony said 57% of Māori looking for housing, just for kai. 1 in 5 Māori in Aotearoa, 1 in 3 Māori under 25. These are massive issues that we have to deal with, right?
They're huge issues, and the evidence is so clear. It's so crystal clear that any time we are in a period of economic crisis, the people who pay the price the most is Māori. And, whether that's the late 1980s, whether that was a GFC, whether it's the current situation that we are in now, tangata Māori, whānau Māori are the ones who are most adversely impacted time and time and time again. So there's nothing particularly new about this. This is an old story playing out in new ways. I mean, probably what is different now is that with the cost of living crisis is that housing costs are completely out of control, and that human right to have a roof over your head, to be warm, to be dry, just basic fundamental human rights. Far too many of our whānau don't have that. And
I'm going to ask you to forecast a bit, right? But given that we've seen the increase in Māori population, these are issues that we have to think about dealing with in the long term. And if we don't get these social policy settings right, this is going to be an ongoing issue. In fact, it will be worse in the next generation or two, won't it, Ahorangi?
Oh, 100%. And here's the thing, we know so much about the situations that our whānau are in, but what we talk about less is the huge opportunity cost and the huge waste of our youthful population, and a wider Aotearoa population that is ageing, that has sub-replacement fertility, where the proportion of the Māori population is increasing, where our tamariki are going to be the future engine of the national economy.
Not just Māori economy, national economy.
I'm not, Māori economy, I'm talking about national economy and regional economies. You look in Gisborne, 80% of tamariki there are soon going to be Māori. the regional economy depends on investment in our tamariki. And so, you know, if you would ask me the question, what does our social policy of the future require? It requires whatever the mix of policies are, it means expanding the opportunities for our tamariki, whatever that takes. Otherwise, we're going to waste our demographic opportunity.
I do want to pick up on that further later on in the conversation, Tony. One of the things that's become evident, obviously, is also the fact that it puts a lot of strain on marae, Papakura Marae, those that are working and providing service and assistance to whānau. There's only so much marae can do and provide. I mean, you must be fully stretched now.
Yeah. There's not an easy day at the marae any day. So, you know, every day we strive to do what we can, you know, within the means that are before us. But to be fair, you know, we need to be working smarter. And I invite government, I invite the purse holders to work with us in developing that strategy, that pathway forward. You know, we've had some things that we've introduced over the last year or so around co-location, for example. And this is getting the government departments to be sited on the marae. You know, I don't have their budgets, but the next best thing is to have them on site and to be working with them to kind of create. So we've got work and income on site. We've got kāinga ora on site. We've got oranga tamariki. Some of the big hitters that our whānau Māori need to engage with. So I feel that when, you know, at the marae, you balance that whole power game, that control game. They're treated like whānau. They're welcome to the marae. We have a kai and a cup of tea, kai and kōrero. It's our kai and care package.
But that's an approach that the marae has adopted, right? To give it greater access to our whānau. Not so much from the Crown, not so much from the government's obligation side. This is you driving that, right?
We're driving it. There's a few of us in Tāmaki Makaurau that, you know, this isn't a new thing. We've started this about 2-3 years ago, but the co-location opportunity, and some of us in our taumata kōrero, which is a group of Māori organisations throughout Tāmaki Makaurau, we've applied this approach because, you know, it's about partnerships and working relationships, and we feel with them on site with us at the marae, 1 + 1 = 100 every day.
Yeah. Ahorangi, you talked about the need for future policy settings to really address the lack of opportunity, or actually the loss of opportunities that we have. But what does that look like, do you think, going forward? Because these are issues that have always plagued us, and yet we're still in the situation we're in now. What do you think that looks like in terms of future social policy settings?
Yeah, no, there's a couple of things. I mean, I think just to tautoko and acknowledge what Tony's been talking about, you know, in terms of a more decentralised and devolved approach to policy making. I think there's still a huge amount of arrogance that a top-down policy making approach is the one that's going to work, and we've just seen time and again it actually fails. And we have, you know, people in communities who are doing evidence-based, future-focused, multiple strand approaches to policy, working alongside our whānau that actually work. And for a whole bunch of reasons, it actually makes sense to pivot and do that. But often it's pretty hard for our communities, people like Tony, to actually get resourced in a sustainable way to continue doing the good things that they do, and then to scale that up in a way so that more whānau can actually be helped. So I think, you know, that devolution trajectory is a really important one. It does require the kāwanatanga to share power, and, you know, that's always been a bit of a sticking point.
I do want to talk about this more after the break, about what specifically that might look like and whether or not there's trust and confidence that that decentralised approach will actually occur. We're going to talk about that after the break, and hopefully be joined by Helen Robinson, who's in Australia. Kia uru mai e te iwi. We have more after this. Oki mai anō e hoa mā. Welcome back to the Hui. We have our panel of experts talking cost of living. Papakura Marae CEO Tony Kake, University of Waikato Professor Tahu Kukutai, and CEO of Auckland City Mission, the Manutaki Helen Robinson, is joining us live from Australia now. So let's cross to her. Helen, tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, hoa. Good to have you with us. So we've got a bit of the ground that has been painted, the flax roots that has been painted within the community from Tony. I want to talk about strategy going forward, if that's all right, Helen. What do you see as an important strategy to deal with the cost of living crisis, not just now but going forward? What needs to happen in your view?
I just really want to join with my panellists and just acknowledge first that the current situation is untenable. It has been for many years, and they have beautifully spoken about the impact of poverty, and particularly the flag that I really want to fly today is about food and food insecurity. So what actually happens to our whānau when we don't have enough food and we don't have a security around accessing that food. And Tony spoke beautifully about his experience at Papakura, and at the mission we also support her in partnership with Aotearoa Marae and Aotearoa Marae and Māngai, and our own site in central city Auckland. And every year between the four of us we are distributing over 50,000 food parcels. So every one of those feeding a family of four for 3 meals for 4 days. So our children, our tamariki, our whānau are hungry and they are starving. And there is a moment in time, I think, that we have before us where all of us as a country can actually stand up and say, enough, stop. Now is a time where we can go forward. And there are many, many different pathways that need to occur. And Tahu has explained some of them beautifully from my point of view.
And hopefully we've still got you there, Helen, and if not, I'll come back to our other panellists here. But what specifically is the measure that will change to accrue greater outcomes for Kai, for all of our communities in Aotearoa? What do you want to happen? What needs to happen next?
I want New Zealand to stand up. I want those who know about it to speak up, and I want those who don't know about it to actually come to understand the reality and wake up. We need to sit at a collective table, particularly with iwi and hapu, and to actually say what needs to happen for New Zealand to have a food secure nation, so all of us and our children particularly can be fed deep into the future. And that does begin with both our country and then with government. And I think particularly bringing together a cross-ministerial working group to really look at how do we create a plan for Kai for our country.
Okay, Tony, I think the phrase that I have heard you use is food sovereignty. What does that mean?
So food sovereignty to me is more than just kai. We need to look at the barriers that prevent people from having enough kai. So sovereignty in terms of their mana motuhake over the basics and the essentials like affordable housing, ensuring that they have. Well, actually, you said it before. You know, that the basics like a roof over your head, a warm place to live, and kai on the table. Now, how do we get there? We need to address the housing issues. We need to ensure that the benefits that people are receiving are adequate enough to so that the basics, the fundamentals in life are being achieved, being received.
What's required to, I think, address some of this, and Helen talked about cross-ministerial parties and working groups, right? That requires trust and confidence from the government to be able to allow decentralisation of its current bureaucracy and to talk about things like mana motuhake. Do you honestly believe that can be done with this current government?
Well, with any government, I want to put the message out there that, you know, rather than kind of creating policy down in Wellington, come and talk to us. Come talk to us at the grassroots. Get us involved. You know, I can write policy. I can help them and develop and shape up that policy. So stop doing it in your crystal ball or you know, protect behind the walls.
Okay. I hate to interrupt. Has that happened yet? Have they come and talked yet? Knowing there's a cost of living. Okay. Knowing that you're a service provider, knowing there's a cost of living crisis, that hasn't happened and they haven't come to you yet.
That's correct. Yeah. But the invitation is there.
Okay. Ahorangi, I want to talk about some other issues which are actually really aligned. And that's about the fundamental requirements that need to change to allow access to equitable outcomes in education, equitable outcomes in that area and things like that. How does that happen? And is it happening now to allow change in the future or not?
I think it's really clear that no, it's not happening now because far too many of our tamariki and our taiohi aren't experiencing the sort of success that they, you know, deserve to experience within the education system. It's hard to be successful when you're hungry, you know, and when your basic fundamental needs aren't being met, a warm, safe whare, kai on the table, you know, educational success looks a little lofty. So there's some basic fundamental rights that need to be met. And, you know, it's really sad that it's become so normalised that people think a whole bunch of hungry brown children is okay, and it's not. It's an indictment on our society and the shape that Aotearoa, you know, is in at the moment. And that began before the current political leadership. But, you know, political leadership matters. Moving forward, like I also think success is what we should strive for as Māori. You know, as a demographer, when I look over the broad sweep of time and how, you know, at the turn of the 19th century, we were only 42,000 Māori, and you know, Pākehā, we're sort of preparing to smooth the dying polo of the Māori race. Yes. And now, 2023, there's almost 1 million Māori. It's very clear that we have survived as a people, but surviving and thriving are completely different. And what do we want for our mokopuna? Not survival. You know, we want them to thrive. And what does thriving look like? Well, it looks like educational success. It looks like whānau, you know, living the way they want to, whether that's on papakainga or in a flash townhouse. You know, it means being able to speak the reo if they want to. And there's initiatives, Māori-led initiatives that work. I know, because I'm on one of them. Pūhoro STEM Academy.
Pūhoro STEM, OK. All right, thank you for that too. I was going to raise that point. Helen, if I can come back to you. We've heard your very clear call for a cross-ministerial party or working group or advocacy group to be able to deal with these issues. I want to ask the same question. Is there trust and confidence, do you think, now for that to occur, given the work you're doing now and what you are seeing?
What is incredibly important is that as a leader and as each one of us, that we hold on to hope and that we work concretely and specifically together towards an expression of that hope. So I will stand with my colleagues on this panelist here and say the invitation, the request, and actually the demand for this to occur, now is the time.
Do you think that request will be picked up? Do you think that invitation will be answered?
I am always incredibly hopeful, and I will work towards and stand with all kinds of people to work towards that reality. Yes.
Helen, thank you. We got there in the end, despite the sketchy line. We'll blame the Aussies for that. E mihi ana kia koe. And of course, Ahorangi and Tony. Tēnā koutou. Thank you both very much for your time. I really appreciate you being live in studio with us here today. Ko te matau taumata, tāpui tāmaka tēnei.